Hello and welcome to a new edition of Eco at Africa, brought to you by Deutsche Welle, Channels TV and KTN. I'm Edith Kimani from Nairobi, and this week I'm coming to you from the very serene Nairobi Safari Walk here in Kenya.
And I'm Neota Igbe, standing about 1,000 feet above sea level in Delta State, Nigeria. Together we cover exciting environmental stories from all over Africa and Europe. But these are some of the stories we have lined up for us today. We find out why prices for donkeys are skyrocketing in Nigeria and what China has got to do with it. We meet fishermen in Ireland who cultivate seaweed, which is not only a healthy food, but can be beneficial for the environment. And then we find out why marshlands are so important in Rwanda and how they can be protected.
Now, it's slimy and green, so seaweed might not be the first thing you think of when you want to have something to eat like a snack. But for a fourth-generation fishing family in Northern Ireland, it's different. See, they cultivate seaweed, they process it, and then they sell it to be eaten. And seaweed is not just a healthy food, it's great for the environment.
It might not look like much, but seaweed is bringing a new lease of life to a small island in Northern Ireland. Both the human and marine residents of Rathlin Island are strongly dependent on the ebb and flow of the ocean. Kelp seaweed had long been harvested for medicinal purposes, until 50 years ago. With her company Ocean Veg Ireland, Kate Burns is bringing seaweed back, this time for food. She cuts the nutrient-rich algae into noodles to sell to restaurants.
Of course, it was harvested wild. What I'm doing is different because I'm farming it, which is more sustainable. It also means that we can choose which kelp we want to grow. It means we can stagger the growing season, so it's kind of altogether a smarter way to do it.
Seaweed needs no fertilizer, and the so-called kelp forests provide habitats for fish, and so more food for animals like seals and birds. It's in the nursery where the process really starts. Kate and her team have found a sustainable way to artificially begin growing the kelp. Sarah Barry prepares the reproductive areas of the kelp blades. They release spores, which Sarah then pours around spools, where they can settle and begin to grow. She doesn't use chemicals. Organic feed is enough.
Oh yeah. So there they are.
In their own environment, they would be looking for a rough surface like a rock. So it will swim with its little tail until it finds that rock, and it'll settle there. So in the tank, we have made these spools with twine, and the twine has a rough surface. So the spore will swim until it finds the twine, and it'll settle on that.
The spores grow small shoots over a period of 9 weeks. Growing them in the tanks has the advantage that the company doesn't take away from the island's unique ecosystem. But it's not always plain sailing.
Growing it in the tank, we have had some problems from time to time. We've lost spools due to too much acidity in the water or bacteria growing, you know. So, but when those things happen, it's helped us learn how to, you know, how to keep the water very alkaline or to keep it very sterile.
Once they've grown in the tanks, the seaweed shoots are laid out on the ropes and taken into the sea. A few months later, it's time for the team to harvest. Ocean Veg Ireland has licensed 30 acres of ocean space for the nutrient-rich algae. The company was founded in 2013 by Kate and her 2 sons, who grew up on the island and are the last fishing family there. Seaweed farming has become a way for the fishermen and women to diversify their business. This year, Ocean Veg Ireland will have harvested 25 tonnes of kelp. Next year, they have to almost double that to meet growing demand. Now it's time to clean the kelp and turn it into something more appealing. It's sold to restaurants and wholesalers in the UK and elsewhere in Europe.
We are going to turn this into these noodles.
For a long time, seaweed has been a staple of Asian food. Kate is trying to also bring it to European plates.
One of the biggest challenges for kelp farming is the fact that it does require licensed sea space, which is exclusive. What would be great in the future would be to see kelp farms around, for example, ocean wind farms. You know, why not start to combine at-sea infrastructure in that kind of multi-use way? But you know, that's maybe my dream, and but it would be good to see, you know, people like thinking outside the box.
Seaweed farming is heavily reliant on the weather, and work can be unpredictable. But there will always be some time for Kate, Sarah, and the rest of the team to relax. For the first few years, it's been a lot of trial and error. But despite all that, the future looks bright for kelp.
Okay, I know I made it sound really slimy, but I actually have tried dried seaweed as a snack and I quite liked it. But enough of that and back to our host in Nigeria. There's demand for something that's prized in China, which is causing problems in Lagos. Neota, you have the details for us.
Seaweed, Edith? That's interesting, but let's talk donkeys. Here in Nigeria, they are used as beasts of burden to transport goods or for farm work. But in China, their hides and skin are used for traditional medicine. So donkey meat is also popular there as well. But the population of these animals is dwindling, so they are looking to Africa. The traders are looking to Africa. Now, some African countries are also taking steps to ensure the population of these animals does not dwindle, so they have banned their export. Let's see how they are doing that.
Donkeys weren't always in such high demand at this market near the regional capital, Kano. Last year, one of these creatures went for the equivalent of 50 euros. Today, people pay more than twice that amount. Nuhu Majiki says people buy his donkeys so quickly they can't keep up with demand.
Before, we had truckloads full of donkeys here, but those days are long gone.
The vendors say many of the donkeys here are sold again through middlemen who ship the animals' hides and bones to China, to the tune of 10 to 15 tons every month. Mao is a Chinese entrepreneur who won't give his last name. He's been coming to Nigeria for many years. He says he's not personally involved in the donkey exporting business, but he's heard that his compatriots back home can make tenfold profits by selling donkey hides.
Donkey gelatin is one of our traditional medicines. It's good for women's skin, makes them look younger, and men like to take it to improve their sexual performance.
While local businessmen enjoy the unexpected profits and Chinese consumers praise the effects of the products, the high demand of donkeys is increasingly becoming a problem in Nigeria. Especially the question which exports are legal and which ones are prohibited seems to overstrain local authorities.
This trade has long since been outlawed because the number of donkeys in Nigeria is dwindling. But insiders say many exporters find legal loopholes and pass off the donkey hides as so-called processed animal products. A simple bribe usually takes care of any lingering questions posed by authorities. Even the head of the regional customs office admits the problem is out of his control.
The average customs officer is not very knowledgeable, in dictating whether a processed skin is for donkey or is for horse or is for cow.
A new shipment of donkeys has just arrived. Nuhu Majiki says they are clearly worse for wear after being transported over 100 kilometers from the border region near Niger. He's not the only one who worries that one day there may not be any donkeys left in northern Nigeria.
Whether it's donkeys, other animals, or us humans, we all need to answer the call of nature. But did you know that our waste can actually be beneficial for the environment? A school in Uganda has done its bit for the environment. They built a biolatrine. Don't worry, you won't see anything you don't like.
Did you know that human waste can help save the environment? In Uganda, 80,000 hectares of forest are destroyed every year. The reason? Most people here use wood and charcoal for cooking. That made school principal Musa Busa Muwima want to try something new. He installed a biolatrine at this primary school in Kampala. It collects and turns human waste into biogas. The gas is used in the school kitchen. Now the school uses 75% less firewood. And compared to pit latrines, the biolatrines are cleaner. As a result, students don't fall sick as often. And the environment is cleaner too.
Do you like that? If you are also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
Let's turn our attention to a very different issue: energy. Electricity supply can be unreliable even in Africa's big cities, and many rural areas are off-grid. One source of energy that humans can rely on is the sun. A German metalworking company has come up with a novel way of providing solar power at a local level. They managed to cram an entire power plant into a box, and many of their customers are in Nigeria.
At first glance, it looks like an ordinary shipping container. But with a few adjustments, it soon transforms into a mini power plant, energised purely by the sun. Once the crew of 4 has pulled out the panelled frames, the container is ready to connect to the power grid.
The modules are now generating electricity. A container like this can accommodate about 160 modules, which generate up to 50 kilowatts of power.
Components inside, such as inverters and batteries, regulate the electricity around the clock. To ensure it runs smoothly, local electric companies maintain the circuitry on site. Individual homes tap in through the distribution panel, which connects to the power station through one main line. Bernhard Bauersachs installed his first container in Mali. Far from the capital in the village of Mucha, he has supplied power to more than 100 households, as well as the village school.
The Mali project only required one of our engineers. He enlisted the help of a few industrious people on the ground there who were good with their hands. With the help of these people and support from the village, they installed the container and were generating electricity by the end of the day.
The German company works closely with local partners. Together they train up local people as service technicians. One of those partners is Peter Human. He's a businessman from Nigeria. He's now keen to bring these solar power plants to Nigeria too.
It's mobility. We can go to different locations where people need the light, mostly for rural areas, because power is a key thing. We are trying to generate power to different areas, and Nigeria being a large country.
Compared to diesel generators, electricity produced by the solar containers isn't just cleaner, it's also cheaper. 1 kilowatt hour costs 13 euro cents. Diesel power is more than twice that. The mobile solar plant in Mali was financed through small crowdfunding donations from Germany.
It works like this. We found investors who gave small amounts of money in the range of 100 to 1,000 euros. A container requires about 150,000 euros when all the costs are factored in.
Once investors pay in, they expect to earn interest. Customers in Africa pay back the investment in installments through their electricity bills. Bernhard Bauersachs and Peter Human also hope to entice bigger investors to fund solar development in Africa.
We thought, starting on a process from the beginning, this is what we are trying to start off. We know if we succeed, we're going to get all the investors to come into our aid, because Nigeria needs a startup, like a reference point.
The engineers in Germany need 1 month to construct a mobile power plant. A number of African countries are now interested in the project. This container is going to Nigeria. Soon it will be providing a school with electricity.
So now let's head back to Africa. To be precise, to East Africa. Edith has got some news.
Well, that's right, NT. And this time we take you to Rwanda. At an altitude of over 2,000 meters above sea level lies an important source of water, Rugezi Marsh. But water levels there are sinking drastically. The wetland is being drained dry by agriculture and energy industry. Environmentalists are determined to find a solution.
The Rugezi Marsh is a 20-kilometre-long stretch of wetlands in northern Rwanda. Francis Musake is a leading conservationist in the region.
This swamp, first of all, helps to filter the water. That is very key to biodiversity. But at the same time, the swamp harbors these different birds, as you can see. But another aspect is that this swamp feeds other lakes on the other side. But remember also the swamp feeds into Ntaruka hydropower station. So those are very key aspects as to why this swamp has to be protected.
The wetlands are home to many birds, including the grey-crested crane, an endangered species, and the ibis. The areas where the birds nest, raise their young and search for food are under threat.
Another aspect is the soil erosion, because the swamp is kind of in the valley, and so once it rains during the rainy season, because most of the hills around are not well protected with trees, so the soil comes into the swamp.
Francis Musaki meets regularly with local farmers, but there are no simple solutions. People here know that damaging the environment will also destroy their livelihoods.
20 years ago, there were tall trees and lots of forests here. The people cut down a lot of trees. Now they're all in need of firewood. The population keeps growing. There aren't many animals here anymore.
Without trees, the soil erodes. It's a huge problem across Rwanda. In this region, the silt endangers the marsh and lakes. One approach is reforestation. Planting new trees could halt the erosion and be useful in other ways. The hazelnut shrubs, for example, can be used in raised bed gardening. The branches serve as fodder, so the cows no longer need grass from the marsh.
Initially, they thought trees were not good for the gardens. They thought trees they were competing with their crops. But with time, with the sensitization and education, they have now learned that trees can coexist with the gardens and with their crops.
The International Union for the Conservation of Nature maintains 5 nurseries where they grow seedlings, including fast-growing eucalyptus. The work provides jobs, and it's already produced 400,000 young plants. Some of the trees will be allowed to grow to stabilize the soil. Others will be used for firewood. The seedlings need to be watered twice a day. It will take years for them to grow big and strong. The nearby tea plantation also needs watering twice a day. Normally the plants don't require irrigation, but for the past 6 months there's been no rain. The tea factory is the region's largest employer, and it illustrates the dilemma faced by the people here. Tea production uses lots of electricity, water and firewood. The tea leaves are dried using hot steam. 350 kilograms of tea consume a cubic metre of firewood. The factory manager has now installed new, more efficient ovens.
So we cut down the use of firewood by 47%. We're working with the forestry and a team there to try and look at better yielding varieties of blue gum trees that will use less land and be able to provide us with the required firewood.
The region needs reforestation to help maintain the local water cycle. Hydroelectric power is playing a growing role in Rwanda. 40% of the country's power comes from water, so hydropower is also suffering from the lack of rainfall.
The water level is lower than it used to be, so operating the power plant has become more difficult. The marsh is a very vulnerable system, but we badly need the water to generate electricity.
The torrents that flow from the wetlands have become weaker. All the more reason to protect the marsh and the species that are at home in it. People here are determined to do what they can to save it from destruction.
It is my wish that this continues to exist because it is very important to this area. It regulates, for instance, the climate around. It gives the water to the hydroelectric power, and we need water for economic development and all that. So in my point of view, I would like to see, be it the lakes, be it the water, be it the ecosystem around maintained and for our future generations.
In some villages in Kenya, people and elephants are sworn enemies. See, on the one hand, the animals destroy the crops of helpless farmers, but on the other hand, the elephants are just trying to survive. So now, farmers are getting some help from an amazing idea. Bees, that's right, bees are enabling them to protect their crops without harming elephants. I'm sure you're wondering how, so watch.
Farmer Nation Mungware has finally been able to harvest many sacks of corn. He leased his field 10 years ago when his first child was born, but a powerful enemy came and stole his harvests. We would sow the seeds, but just before harvest time, the elephants would come. Sometimes even before the corn was ripe, they would eat everything or trample it. Everything was destroyed. They always came during the night and raided the field. It was a war between humans and animals over land and sustenance. But for Nation Mungware, that struggle is now over, thanks to help from the Elephants and Bees project. Teams from the project constructed a fence made of beehives along the perimeter of his field. If an elephant comes into contact with the wire connecting the hives, the bees emerge to defend the colony.
These African honeybees are very aggressive, and this is the advantage of the method. Once they sting you, they release a pheromone on your skin that causes the other bees to come and sting in the same location. Now this is an advantage for elephants, so if they sting on the elephant's trunk, the other bees will come to the trunk and sting again.
The tiny Davids get the huge Goliaths to beat a retreat. If elephants have been stung once, their famously good memories ensures that they avoid future contact with the pesky insects. Even the sound of their buzzing can throw the elephants into a panic.
You can see there was a group of elephants, it looks like 3 elephants in total here, that approached his farm, came around the corner, or even around the side of his fence, saw that there were bees there, maybe even felt, or heard, or smelled, and then decided to proceed around and go another way because of those bees.
The farmers who once went hungry actually gained 2 advantages thanks to their little helpers. They now have additional income from the honey the bees produce, and they no longer harm or kill the elephants like they used to back when they defended their fields with drumming, stones and spears.
Those are my friends by nowadays because they don't disturb me when they come near my farm. That's what I know. They are my friends. Before that, they were nearly my enemies.
Nation Mungware and his wife call it a miracle. They say all their neighbors want to know how it works, how the bees change humans and elephants from enemies into friends.
So there's plenty of people fighting for the environment in all parts of Africa and also in Europe. Those are all the reports we have for you today. Bye-bye from Nairobi.
And goodbye from Delta State, Nigeria. If you want to know more about us, check out our website and follow us on our social media pages. We will be back next week, same time. Until then, thank you for joining us for our Pan-African Environmental Show. Bye-bye.